Well, hey there. I'm Shannon Kiebler with Empower Consulting, and I'm so glad that you're joining me for this session on where are small groups in math expressions. If you and I have not already met, I am the moderator of the Math Expressions Facebook user group, but also I have more than 20 some years of classroom experience in education. I have taught every grade, kindergarten through sixth grade, and I have taught every single lesson in math expressions K-6. I know the resource extremely well. I now work with teachers just like you across the nation to help with their implementation. I do not work for the publisher, and I work just independently doing model lessons, professional learning, and then I'm also the founder of the Math Genius Squad, which is my online math expressions membership for teachers like you that have videos and lesson Google slide decks and small group activities to help complement what you're doing in math expressions. And today I really want to take our time going into the teacher's guide and talking about where do these small groups exist, because I think our definition of what small group is or can be is somewhat limited based on what our experience has been or what we've done maybe with reading or another part of our instructional day. So just for common language, I wanted you to see that that's just a few options of how it might look. I want you to see a few pictures. So here's a picture. You can see a group of first graders. They're working in collaborative groups. This is something I call the learning bridge. When the group has come to a conclusion about their answer, you can see all their hands are meeting in the middle. That tells me as the teacher they're ready. The teacher's over here. She's can be going back and forth between groups, checking in. Well, why do you think that? Are you ready? But having students have something to do, like hands meeting in the middle or whatnot, helps prevent the getting off task easily. Like you're so busy talking to one particular group that the rest of the groups have now flown off the handle because they've been finished for 10 minutes and you're sucked into this group. Okay. So when I put my hand in the middle and I say, and then once you do that, that's a learning, that means there's no more talking. That I hear audibly the room come down. I know groups are ready. I've got to wrap up my conversation with groups and move to another one or give a new problem. You can see another example here. We're in a second grade classroom, and all of these groups here, all these pods are all working with these place value blocks, building the same problem. I've given them the problem and I've said, here's what I want you to figure out. First, figure it out with blocks, then figure it out with a proof drawing, and notice they're working as pairs and as a group. Okay, so I've already normed them and given them protocols about what that might look like, but then it's me going to each of the groups. They're not coming to me, but I'm coming to this group. I'm like, okay, she has 10-6 written here. Does she even know what she has written, or she's copied from him? So tell me about what you drew here. Why did you choose to do that? Okay, what's your next step? I'm promoting moving like perseverance. I'm promoting independence. I don't want them to feel like they can't do it unless I'm showing them at the board and everyone's just copying me. You can see here's a group of fourth grade students that are all working together on a carpet. They already did the problem. This would fit more in that solve and discuss method. Everyone's doing the problem. And now you can see that this individual is starting to share how she did her method or why she chose that. And the rest of the group is listening, and they're going to have to report out. They also have norms and protocols. They have to ask her questions. Well, why did you put the 4 there? Or why did you choose this method? Or how did you know the answer was 56? Right? I have normed and protocoled this. So this is active listening. It's not just her taking her turn, but I'm walking around and listening in for things that I'm concerned about. But also I'm looking for trends. What am I seeing in these small groups that I'm like, we're going to have to address this as a whole group, pull everyone back together. Here's what I'm seeing. Okay, but they're actively working in those small groups. Here's an example. I'm here up at the front of the board. I've got a small group here. Other kids are back at their seat doing an assignment I've given them, because we just need to attack this in a smaller setting, and we're not understanding why a number would round to a particular number. So I'm doing some modeling here. We're having some math talk conversations. This would be another example of some of the kids are with me, some of the kids are working independently. So now let's look at within core lessons. So when we are in core lessons and we go into the teacher's guide, I'm going to go into grade 4 right now, just as an example, and make sure I'm going to go actually to the table of contents first. So we're going to go over here to unit 6, and I'm going to go to the table of contents. Okay, so hold on there with me. I'm going to walk you through what this might look like. So here I'm in the table of contents. Remember that when I'm in here, I see the big idea, and this is true for everyone except for kinder, because kinder, you don't actually have quick quizzes, but you would still be stopping and assessing what the big ideas were in you still have big ideas, you just don't have a paper pencil quiz. Okay, so in unit 6 for 4th grade, you can see here's big idea number 1, and then we have lesson, a quick quiz, then big idea number 2, repeat, quick quiz, and then big idea number 3, repeat, quick quiz, and then a unit test. So remember that the mastery learning loop talks about where a small group fits in perfectly and authentically in these quick quiz sessions. Okay, so I'm not going to panic necessarily during these lessons, and I'm going to show you where the small group is in these lessons, where there's opportunities for it. But I'm also just trying to build understanding. Can kids build fractions with like denominators? Can they draw them? Can they talk about them? We are really working a lot on building understanding. And then I'm going to give them this quick quiz. And once I give them this quick quiz, which happens on the last day of this lesson, so the quick quiz for me does not get its own day. If I give it its own day, my pacing really suffers. One, it's only 5 questions. So I don't need a whole day for 5 questions. But 2, I need time to look at that data so that the next day I give a whole day to is a reteach day. So they take quick quiz 1 at the end of lesson 3. I look at the data and I decide, what do kids know? What do kids not know? These kids are struggling with this skill and these kids are struggling with that skill. Okay. And based on what I'm seeing with the quick quiz, now I'm going to go into one day of not moving forward in my lessons, but reteaching the big ideas from that quick quiz. And I'm sorting students based on the quick quiz data and the formative data I received during the lessons, where I saw some of the kids that were struggling. But remember that learning is cumulative. It takes time. So in lesson 1, they might like be totally clueless and like not getting it, right? Have a small group of kids like that. It doesn't mean I need to intervene right then. It means some kids just need more time, and at least give them the time to work through the big idea, get to that quick quiz, and now I'm going to be really strategic with some of my time with those particular individuals. But they need more time before I start feeling like I have to, separate the group, and these are the haves and these are the have-nots, and whatever. Okay. So this is a time during core tier 1 instruction that you are stopping and doing purposeful small groups. Now that can be any of the 4 things that I showed you, as far as that could be half the class, because I got half the class that gets it and half the class that was struggling with the proof drawing. Okay. Well, then I'm going to stop and I'm going to do on that reteaching day, I'm going to break them up into half and half. It might be that everyone really struggled with number 4. I'm going to put them in small groups and I'm going to rotate, give them that number again, that problem again, talk about some of the issues I saw, give them another like problem, have them work collaboratively. I go from group to group to group, right? And then we'll bring it back whole group. Then I give them another one and I say, now do it by yourself. Let's see if we got better. Did I meet my need of what was on that quick quiz that needed to have some reteaching? So keep in mind also that reteaching in the core in a small group session is on core skills. So if I'm working in a small group, I might be, let's say I'm in, 4th grade long division. I might be having kids that are really struggling because they don't know their multiplication facts. Remember, that's not my standard as a 4th grade teacher. Multi-digit multiplication is my standard. Multi-digit division is my standard, and they need the multiplication facts. But that multiplication fact work, that happens in win time, or what I need time, and intervention time. So during my core, when I am doing small groups, I'm choosing to provide scaffolds during that time so they can still do my grade level standard, but they need a scaffold because they're lacking some skills. So my small group time can be just that, providing that scaffolded work. So this is in the core a purposeful time. So if you're not pulling small groups during the lessons, it's okay. It is built in here on purpose. You just have to take the day to do it. So if you're a person that likes structure, then put the structure in after every quick quiz. You're stopping and running small groups those days, so that in whatever format you like, so that you feel like you can meet individual student needs, which is the reason why most of us are being asked to do small groups, because it feels like when we're possibly in whole group, we're not aware of the needs of individual learners or able to meet individual learners. Now, I'm hoping you're finding like I could be doing a better job in whole group and get that there. So But if you are also looking for a time to have kids close to you and in small group, which I love too, I feel like I need that time. A quick quiz reteaching day is a really great time to do that. So where else might I see it in my lesson plan? So let's dive in. I'm in unit 6. If I see this here, I can see that I'm going to get 3 lessons to work on fractions with like denominators. Okay, so that's my goal right now. I know that that's what I'm going to have. Can they build it? Can they draw it? Can they write it? So what I want you to see is when I start walking through some of these lessons, I see if I'm in the 2018 copyright, I see right up here these little icons. Okay. And these icons will tell me if it is suggested that the kids do it independently, in pairs, in groups, or in whole class. These are suggestions. They are not mandatory. You don't have to, but I do find they give us some guidance. Okay, so for example, right here, I'm starting this unit. Notice that it's whole group. Notice it says math talk, whole group. Okay, I keep going, I keep going. Notice it's whole group activity 2, keep going. Oh, now I get to partners. Here's why I want you to see that. I want the whole class, because we are using math manipulatives, we're creating the manipulatives together. We're talking about what a denominator is. When I read this text, there is a lot of conversation happening. So what do you know about this? Why is this happening? Now, just because I'm in whole group doesn't mean it's one and done. Like one kid is standing up there talking and the rest of us are just staring at him, or it's me talking and everyone's staring at me. Whole group does not mean that. Okay, so I am having kids talk to each other and to the class this whole time, but we are building the concept together and I need to hear all the voices. We're making our manipulatives together. We're talking about the unit fraction. We're talking about the word name here. As I'm going through, I'm seeing all of these great things. We're talking about the sum of unit fractions. Okay, so we go from just remembering what a fraction is to how do we add unit fractions. There's some guidance here, a whole group of like, try this, but what does it mean here? Well, can you prove with your fraction strips? Can you write an equation that matches that? Again, I'm doing this all in whole group, but watch the shift. Then I get to where it says partners. So it says, now ask students if they understand this. And then it says the text, have students read the text with the students, complete the exercises, have students practice, doing their unit fractions. Here's what I mean by that is this part is still whole group. And I know that because I read the script. It tells me facilitate, elicit conversation. Don't just walk them through the workbook. They could do that on their own. That's not the point. The point is we're talking, so look at this one. What do you know about that N? What's it called? What do we call this D? Try to tell your neighbor what we think. We're engaging, we're facilitating. And now I'm saying, okay, we've done enough. We've been building it. We've been drawing it. We've been saying it. Look at this is all things that we're saying, all talk here, right? We've been doing all of this work. Now I want you to work in partners and I want you to work on this part of the workbook. Maybe we do, I'll say numbers 1, 5, and 8. I don't even know what those numbers are, but let's just pretend, okay? With your partners, and then they have something to do when they're finished, meaning they're supposed to stand up, they're supposed to put their hands on their head, they're supposed to, I don't know, something of that nature, because I'm going to do the rotate small group thing right now. As they're working through this, I'm rotating to those partnerships and I'm checking in. I'm like, what did you guys get for this? What did you guys get for this? But I'm doing everything in a small, for me, I do everything in really small windows of time. I'm not having them just complete the whole page unless as I'm walking around, I'm feeling like we're totally getting it. Like, we're fine. Okay, guys, I'll make an announcement. Everyone keep going. You can finish the page. But as I'm doing like 1 or 2, I'm checking in and I'm like, we got to bring it back now. Okay, John and Sarah, you guys had to come up and share us. What were you thinking? How did you solve number 3? We might do a solve and discuss then. But when I do it in smaller chunks, I don't have that really big gap of the kids that didn't even finish one problem and the kids that finished everything. Okay, I need to provide enough support as we're going to keep the whole class going, right? And for me to know what they understand. But this is a time where it doesn't say small group, it says partners. But the whole point of small groups is to provide responsive instruction. I am doing that. I'm walking around. I'm not sitting at my desk while they're doing this. Now, it could be that I start to see the kids that are really struggling, and we're doing it in whole group, coming back and having the conversation, they're still not getting the unit fraction. I might release the class then in partners to complete this page or to continue on and talk about patterns, something different here. Maybe I have them do the remembering side of the homework, something else, because I'm going to need to pull a few of those friends that still aren't doing it, and we're going to finish the rest of this page together. Or I'm going to give them time. I'm going to keep going, get through the whole group. Now some of unit fractions again, right? Pull them back together. What patterns do we see? Notice how much is back and forth. Work together. Let's work independently. Let's come back together. Let's work independently. Let's work with your partner. So small group is happening as long as I'm being responsive and I'm providing the support. So again, it says sums of unit fractions, independent. Read this though. It doesn't say release them to both workbook pages and say, good luck, guys. That's not what it says. In fact, if you look here, it says have them practice sum of unit fractions after you review one, talk about what it is, then have students work together or independently in this case, because you're using it as a check for understanding. I might say, everyone, do number 3. When you're finished, hold up your workbook. And I'm just doing a quick glance. Who's getting it? Okay, everyone, continue going. Who's not getting it? Okay, these 3, would you meet me back here? Let's talk about this again. I'm really quickly pulling a little group just to say, okay, do the next one. And I'm watching as they go and asking them the questions. They get it. I release them. I'm constantly releasing because I don't want to create helplessness. So then it says, you solve and discuss. That means for this workbook page, 15 through 18, we are all back together. Everyone's doing let's just say this is number 15. Everyone's doing number 15. A few kids are at the board working. And now we have individuals sharing to the group why they answered it the way they did, how they showed their visual. Everyone used their fraction strips, prove that works. Okay, everyone, do the next one. Right? So that it doesn't mean that they're independent the whole time. It's constantly back and forth. And notice I was providing that responsive instruction. Now, that is just within the lesson. Look real quick at this table of contents one more time. If I look here, notice I can tell this is all new. Understand fractions, fractions to add to 1, add and subtract fractions like denominators. Each one of these is kind of like a new thought, right? All of them, if I look at those lessons, all of them are drawing, all of them are building with their paper fraction strips. All of them have solve and discuss and a ton of math talk. But as I start to read even the descriptors in the teacher's guide, now we're at mixed numbers. Okay, it's going to be the same thing. Add and subtract. Oh, wow, that's brand new. That's going to be the same thing. And then it says practice. Watch what happens when I click that lesson. When I click this lesson, notice it doesn't start with whole group. If you were to go to every other lesson I just pointed out, it all starts with whole group because we're building an understanding. It's not teacher on the stage teaching it. It's plant a question, students try it, okay? And then we're building the understanding together. But not this one, because what we're assuming now is we're saying, okay, for several lessons now, you've been building this understanding of fractions, unit fractions, and mixed numbers. Specifically right now, mixed numbers, what a mixed number is, and adding and subtracting. I just kept going because I know learning's cumulative. They need some time. So those 2 lessons we went through, they may have taken us 3 days, right? It depends on our timing on this. I haven't looked up our pacing. But by the time I get to this lesson, which is the 3rd lesson, the big idea, I'm like, now is when I'm going to go to a group. I saw it. I see the kids that aren't getting it. I see the misunderstandings. I see some of the trouble. This is starting in partners. I'm going to do some small group today. It feels to me like I need to do some reteaching right away with practicing mixed numbers. I can do some solve and discuss as a whole group too, but this would be a good day. The kids that are getting it and thriving, I could just release them to do a lot of practice with lots of norms and protocols and feedback. But it's also a time where I need now for some groups to come to me. We're still working on this lesson. We're still doing the standard of this lesson. I'm not pulling in all these other activities. I could, but I'm not for this because I need the lesson content. Now, if I turn the page and I give you a look at what it is, puzzle penguin, Notice it comes back, and partners talk about this, but I am going to pull the whole class back for this. Remember, this is a suggestion, but this is a great time now. We've been doing lots of practicing. I might be bouncing around to other groups like, okay, I need you to build it. I need you to draw. I need you to write it. Oh, these kids only know the algorithm. They can only stack them and do it. But every time I ask them to describe it or do a visual, they're still not getting it. I needed to provide some support there. But we might all come back together for this to have that final conversation, to make some points of things I saw, perhaps maybe in my small group time. Okay, so you go back to whole group here. You can see, I mean, but it's all building, drawing, etc. By the time I get to check for understanding, I just need to see what kids understand. So the little icons are just suggestions, but they do like almost snap me out of just stay in whole group, my turn, your turn, my turn, your turn. That's not what we want, right? It is helping you to remember now, release, or now is the time that you've been building the understanding enough. Kids should be able to do some of this by themselves, and then bring them back, check, give some feedback, do some more conversation, okay, release them again, do a little more problems. So you can kind of see how that worked out in just that one example of Unit 4, but oftentimes small group happens within the lesson where you see like the little group of heads. Now, side note, if you're in the California 2015 or you're in the 2013 copyright or even earlier back in like 2011, you're going to see a red box. It's actually a white box with a red outline on it. And instead of a group of heads, you're going to see a little red box. That box says small group, whole group. It says it right by the activity in the exact same place that you see it here. It's going to show it you here. So instead of having these little heads, it's going to have a little red box that says small group or whole group or whatever. Again, it is a suggestion, okay? But that's where you're going to see it in here. That's where you're saying, we've built the concept enough. I need to release and provide some maybe independent guidance or some responsive instruction in maybe a small group. In any of those formats I told you at the beginning, a small group could look like. That's in core. After a quick quiz, I'm going to stop. I'm going to do reteaching. That might be when I pull in my rotation stations. All these different ways now to do fractions, and they're building at one of their stations, and they're drawing at one of their stations. Meanwhile, I'm providing responsive instruction. That's core small group. Now, what if you have students that are below grade level? What are we doing then? So I want to show you a couple of other things. If I keep going through this lesson and I see here that I have on-level challenge and intervention, this intervention card could be what you're using with that small group. So maybe I've set some kids to go off independent and I have some friends that are just needing a little bit more support. I may, when I pull them back to my table or go to them, however that looks, do this activity card with them. Now, I might do it during core. I'm more likely during core to actually use like the materials from the lesson because I want to stay on grade level. I want the rigor to stay high. I don't want to dumb down the curriculum where they're not really even getting their grade level anymore. Okay. During core, we want grade level instructions with the appropriate scaffold. But I will oftentimes look at this intervention card as my way of knowing what sometimes those scaffolds might be, or what might the more concrete way of explaining this could be if I do see kids that are struggling. Like, here's another way to think about it. So I do have this. Now, this page is talking about all the activities you could be doing as individuals, pairs, or small groups when you go to a small group section. So if you have time outside of your core instruction, that 60-minute window, 70-minute window, whatever you've been given, and you also have a 20, 30, 15-minute, whatever you have, that's been said, this is small group time. A lot of us call it win time, what I need. Some of us call it MTSS for all of our RTI. Whatever that time, you could use these resources. And that is when I'm either having kids that are working independently or not with me on some of these materials to reinforce the lesson. I could use those materials from a previous unit because it's going to be more independent, because that's my problem, right? I need them to be independent while they're with me. Or I can use some additional resources, like if you're in the Math Genius Squad, I've given you all sorts of stations for all ideas for all of those things. And then this is when you might provide an actual intervention. Outside of core is where I'm like, yes, but that second grader still can't count to 10. Now I'm doing small groups based on those skills. these kids need work on this skill. It is not a second grade skill, but it is a gap in their learning. It's a tier 3 skill. I'm providing intervention support. That's when I'm doing it. But it's not like in the lesson plan to do that. So I see the need. I know the need. I might provide a number chart during my lesson because that's during core and those kids still need support. But when am I teaching them those tier 2, tier 3 skills? That's during outside of my core and like an intervention or a win block. It's necessary. That is how you close the achievement gap, that you can't do more in less time. You can't provide intervention and teach core lessons all in the core time. There's barely enough time to teach the core lesson in the core time. You have to have an additional set of time, whether it's one day a week, whether it's twice a week, whether it's every day, whatever your school can do. It's really important to prioritize that if you want to close this. Now, I know some people don't do it for like their kindergarten and first grade, and it kills me. I'm like, that's called being proactive, right? Like, well, it's just like with reading. We got to get those number issues in check by the time they leave second grade. So it is important in K1 to also have those times to make sure our number sense is really solid. So remember, in expressions, during the lesson, it will tell you where to go and what the suggestion is. But then you have your differentiated page here of other activities. If you don't know what to do with intervention, okay, you have this. You do have the personal math trainer. And then remember, if you go to Delta Math, it's OASID. It's not, if you just do Delta Math, it's like a 6th grade math program. That's not what we mean. It's a free intervention. Some of you are using things like Bridges and other resources or RTI materials and expressions for that outside of core instruction time. If you're in the Math Genius Squad, I've already given you an entire intervention plan and resources, lesson plans, the whole 9 yards. Okay, so that's all there. So I think that it'll help you take a deep breath and truly provide tier 1 small group support so that we're getting double doses of what they're struggling with right now if we actually knew when the time was allotted for us. I'm for sure start stopping after a quick quiz, and then I'm being responsive on certain days during the lesson. We've been teaching this for like 4 days. Oh, now it's time. I'm going to be doing this in small group. So let me give you 1 or 2 more possible examples. Let me look really quickly at a kindergarten example. If I go to kindergarten and I go to the table, unit 3, I'm just going to go to unit 3 real quick and look at, because a lot of the primary grades, it looks like it's whole group a lot, but if you keep kids in whole group that whole time, you're going to lose engagement. So there's still, for me, a lot of back and forth. Walk back to your desk, do this problem, come back to the carpet. I'm going to go look at what's on your desk. I'll make some conversation from there. Like there's still movement for me a lot in those groups, but let's look here at kinder. Okay, now take a look because they have their big idea. Really, this big idea is partners of 5 and 6. It's what we want to make sure they get. In kindergarten, you're a little different because you're constantly spiraling. I get that question a lot. Like, why is it changing all of these topics? And it's like you do groups of 10, but you haven't done them for like 3 days and now you're doing them again. Well, have you met a 5-year-old? They had it today. They don't have it tomorrow, right? It has to constantly be coming back for them. Also, how many times have you been asked to read the same story? Even for my own kids, like Pout Pout Fish, oh my gosh, like the number of times I read that book, I pretty much have it memorized. I'm like, we've read it so many times. Why do you want to hear it again? Think about that. The repetition is what they want and they crave. It might be boring for you, but it's super important for them. So if I look here, though, my point to this is notice this. They're also doing a lot of park scenes telling math stories because we're working on addition, subtraction, and all of our partners within 10. But we happen to be really working. Oh, I went backwards. We happen to be really focused on the partners of 5 and 6 per this title. So I'm like checking in on that skill, but we're still rehearsing all of these skills. But notice it says tell math stories, park scene. Look at here. Addition, subtraction stories, park scene. Look here, more addition, subtraction, park scene. You're like, really, 3 times? And I'm like, yes. So here's where my small group advice comes in. By the 3rd time, I probably would do it in small group. That day, I may not have them do that whole park scene, tell me a math story, tell your neighbor. I might keep them still there, but that might be where I want to hear individuals now. It's the 3rd time. Okay, so now I'm going to have kids rotate to me. And if I go here to that particular activity, I'm going to show you, look at this park scene. Okay. So it's telling what if stories. It's telling you to use the park scene. It's not showing you a picture of it, but it's telling you in here to grab the park scene. Okay. And use that picture that happened several days ago. So it's telling you what to do. I might choose, even though it says whole group, I might choose this one to be in small group because I want to hear individuals. See, can you now, because it's easier for me to hear, to listen to them, tell me these stories. So Josephine, tell me a story using this, a what if story with your partners. Model it on your counting tray. Show me with your counters. Oh, everyone tell me Josephine's story. Everyone model her story with their counters. Everyone draw the circle drawing of her story. Only Josephine told the story. Everyone else is doing it. But now I'm like, okay, Raphael's turn. Raphael, you tell me the story. So we're just in a group of maybe 6 kids because I'm listening to each one of them and I'm watching who can do this. Okay. Now keep going. But look, these activities like doing how many to 6 and drawing the extra circle and practicing writing our 15s and 16s. And then we have path to fluency, working on fact fluency here, individual. So when that little kindergarten group is with me for park scenes, 5 minutes, 10, maybe 10 minutes, maybe 15, I don't know. What's everyone else doing? Okay, well, I could say, I want you to go only and practice your 15 and 16s. They have their workbook page out. And then I want you to get on your computer and I want you to practice, whatever they can do independently. If you have an aide, it's that much better because my aide is going to be running the other part of this activity. She's going to be thinking about this with them or just monitoring them doing this, making sure we're doing it correctly, providing responsive feedback. Okay, so this might be a day though that I'm going to spend having kids spend the amount of time telling park scenes, stories, maybe in small group today because I want to hear what they can do. So that would be another example, right? So I have I have a whole list of other first grade examples and second grade examples where you can start to see, oh, I can see why they want it to go to small group now because I should be releasing them. Or this is like the 5th day in a row of this. I feel like I just need to get my hands on these kids and really work with them in some small group and provide some additional support. I want you just to know there are places where it's built in, and then there's just your good teaching moves. You feel it. Okay, so we're going to get better at facilitating our whole group, but we can change the pace, right? And I can be responsive here, pull a little group, bring everyone back. If that is just not something I can manage right now, I don't have the management for that, or I have a different type of class for that right now, then I can do a more effective job in whole group, making sure I hear more voices and kids are working more collaboratively together. And I'm going to be more structured and have for sure more of a small group or reteaching day after a quick quiz. So you have options. And as you have questions about this, I would love to be able to answer them. But hopefully now you just start looking at your lessons a little bit more clearly. Keep in mind when you see the different heads, right, that it doesn't mean it's that whole activity or those whole pages. They're expecting that first grader to do a whole page of story problems. They can't even read. Guys, read the script. It doesn't say that. Okay, it says have them work in partners on, and it gives whatever the example is, or read the problem and have the whole class do it, but they're doing it in partners. Just read the script. It tells you, right? But you just need to make sure that you are providing support where, of course, our students need it, and you have planned time. So when you see some of those things that are really worrying you, you have a time already planned to start to work on those particular needs. I hope this helps, my friends. Those are the places right now and expressions where you can find small group supports. And all right, we'll see you online. Bye for now.